Hello and welcome to the Unusual Stories podcast. My name is Wojciech Salski and I'll be your host for today, as per usual. Thank you very much for coming. I hope that this episode is going to be fun for you as much as it is going to be fun for me. And before I start, maybe just a reminder, this is a series of book reviews. So throughout the series, I will give you some insights into what I've discovered and sort of, maybe what touched me and resonated with me in the books that I've read over the past few months. Some of those books you might have heard about, some of them maybe not. This is book number 7, and today we will discuss Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and I will dive into that in a second. Other than that, I guess it's important to note as well, if you would like to support the podcast, feel free to like, comment, subscribe to my channel, or invite a friend, maybe share it on social media for someone else to listen to as well. And of course, as well, if you would like, feel free to reach out, send me an email, or buy me a coffee via the link below, which is always greatly appreciated. Anyhow, tune in, enjoy, and I hope that by the end of this episode, you will be inclined to read this amazing book, which is not that much of a book, really. As we dive deeper into this, I will explain for yourself. So, when it comes to the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, I guess an important thing here to note is that Marcus Aurelius was one of the Caesars in the ancient Roman Empire, and he ruled between the years 161 to 180 before Christ. And basically, these writings that we now call Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is nothing else than his personal journal writings, his personal thoughts that he was collecting, and then they were discovered later on by someone as they discovered the scrolls and found out that he actually kept a good collection of his writings, which were more of thoughts expressed on paper, similar to something we've already discussed before, sort of like a journaling example, or maybe the morning pages, if you remember Julia Cameron's The Artist Way book. And that's very interesting, I think that's one of the main reasons why I was so inclined to read that book. And by now I've read it twice. I've definitely enjoyed it. And each time I found something new for myself, as it usually happens with books of such breadth and width of various things, included various thoughts. So Marcus Aurelius was known to be a representative of Stoicism as a way of living. And if you want to look up Stoicism for yourself, one interesting thing to note maybe is that it's a philosophical movement that tries to approach problems and solutions to those problems in a Stoic manner, which is a good way of saying they try to not be pulled and pushed by emotions. They try to stay grounded and sort of composed, which as you explore the book, you will see for yourself Marcus Aurelius was struggling with, but he was definitely practicing. And of course, the book itself is not comprised of all his life's writings. These are only the ones that were found. And as we can read between the lines and in later chapters, we can see that he was at the time considering death very deeply, about which I will talk in a second, which is also an indication that it was probably at his latter stage of life that he was writing those particular ones. But yeah, I guess that's a good introduction to the whole story. And now let's dive deeper into it. So one thing that I would like to talk about here, the first thing that came into my mind as I was preparing this episode for you, is I thought about the power of the mind, which Marcus Aurelius underlines again and again for himself. It's one of the sort of, I guess, pillars of Stoicism in itself, that you try to not be taken aback or taken away by emotions. And the way emotions are recognized by him, he considers them to be intrusive sort of agents of change that one does not have to give in to. Both in terms of the sort of the willingness of ourselves to do stuff, as well as the unwillingness to experience something and explore some thoughts and ideas and feelings. So an interesting thing here is that even though he was the Caesar, and at the time in that part of the world, it was certainly the most powerful position one could be, and it had its fair share of privileges and available things, both in terms of sort of materialistic as well as social inter relationship wise available to him. And this is something interesting to note, that this gentleman, this man that was probably the most powerful man in that part of the continent at the time, practices being humble. In his spare time, he considers, meditates, contemplates the topic of being humble, of learning, of growing, of exploring thoughts and feelings, and not letting them run their course across our mind, rather facing them square and sort of attending to them, keeping track of them and writing them down when they worry, and trying to be patient and sort of unmoved by them. And for me, this was something really, really powerful. This is possibly the most positive and proactive message, at least for myself, that I've discovered in this particular book. This man who supposedly had it all in terms of our day and age, we could probably compare Caesar to someone like the king of United Kingdom, or maybe the Pope, or the president of United States, or the owner of the biggest company such as BlackRock, for example. Definitely one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful person walking the earth. And yet this particular man focuses his spare time on practicing being humble, and emphasizes again and again in his text this idea of accessing this calm side of one's mind and trying to not be taken away by emotional states and by different things that may affect one's psyche. That was definitely something that really resonated with me, and I have a quote here for you, which I think is an interesting way of underlining this part. It is about choices that we make, and about reminding oneself about those right choices to do. So it says, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Something that still rings in my heart and mind as I read those lines again is tell the truth, or at least don't lie, right? From Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life rule. This is something that for me speaks the truth. It's like the Bible scripture, the truth shall set you free. And for whatever reason, this gentleman who had it all supposedly focuses on those choices and focuses on the right choices, as if he was actually concerned about being a good person, even though he could give in to the wishes and whims of his ego, being in a position he was. And I think that's just really, really powerful, you know. I think the world would be a better place if all of us, including those in power, would be a little bit more humble and a little bit more concerned about what they do and think and say in relationship to the truth and to the well-being of the world, themselves, and others. So I think before we go any further, I invite you here once again to consider for yourself just how much your mind has the ability, your choice has the ability of keeping you humble and calm and composed, even when the going gets hard. And I will elaborate on that in a second in relationship to my recent experience. I will probably also record a separate episodes about that anyway. Secondly, I would like to talk about the idea of this interesting idea for sure of the fact that people will always do awful or at least unpleasant things, and we are only responsible for our own virtue. So again and again in Aurelius's writings, we hear about virtues. He at some point lists his virtues that he believes to strive for. He brings to mind different heroes that he looked up to, and considers in what way does he manage to become those heroes, to sort of to bring forth their qualities for himself, which is a very powerful thing, you know, something that that I believe every one of us does at some point in life. And whether this is about striving to be like someone or striving to be where someone else is, whether it is a fictional or a non-fictional character, really, we all have idols and we all strive to be somehow, be somewhat, and be somewhere. And an interesting thing that Marcus Aurelius points out here is that an important part to notice is that you don't really have influence over what things happen to you and what other people do in particular, but you have all the power, yet again, stemming from your mind, to choose how you will react to those situations. And this is, I guess, the basis of Stoicism, that through practice and through humility, through confidence in yourself, in your practice, you can mitigate the potential risk of being taken away by someone else's choices, and not be influenced, not be stressed about them. And it sort of reminds me of this invitation by Christ to turn the other cheek, or by David Hawkins to let go of what is going on, to let go of the outcome if it's not necessarily what you expected, to let go of someone else's hurting you, and to forgive them, because that means you forgive yourself and your situation, and you do not hold grudge. It's like in this story from I believe from the Buddhism, one of the Buddhist koans, that I can tell you right now, actually, that there are two monks, one young, one old, that approach a river. And there is a rule in their particular practice that they will never touch a woman. They've vowed to never touch a woman in their life. And so they approach a river and they encounter a woman struggling to go through and being very distressed and asking them for help. She wants to get to the other side of the river, but the current is really strong. and she's worried that she will drown. And the young monk tells her diligently that sadly he won't be able to help. They won't be able to help because they vowed to never touch a woman. The older monk does not say anything. He just picks up the woman and carries her across to the other side. They cross the river, and he leaves the woman on the shore. They bid her farewell and they walk off. And they're walking for some time in silence, and the youngster is obviously very distressed about the whole situation. Finally, he finds courage to ask his master, and he says, "Master, why did you pick up that woman and carried her across? You know, you've broken all those years of your vow. You've definitely broken the rules in terms of what we've vowed to do, what we promised ourselves to do and not to do." And the older monk looks at him and says, "I left that woman on the other side of the river. Why are you still carrying her with yourself?" And I guess this is a koan that I remember because it really struck a chord with me in terms of letting go of what happened, letting go of what took place, and similarly letting go of other people's wrongdoings or behaviors that might have distressed you at the time. And I think at this point it's a good moment to mention for you. I've recently, I think at this point it is fair to say, I've recently fall a victim to I guess a sort of a scam, which I'm still trying to figure out what to do with. I have already noticed reported it as a crime, and I'm gonna seek help from the police department. We will see what happens. I'm pretty sure at this point it was a scam in the end, and it is a difficult thing for me to talk about as well, and definitely to come to terms with. I've lost a lot financially, and it's definitely put me through a lot of stress. You might actually hear my voice being a bit raspy still because at the very end of a 5-day bender of stress, I've fallen ill, which is a normal reaction, I think. If you're putting your body under such stress for 5 days, at some point your body will respond with giving up. So I've had a bit of a cold. Now I'm getting better thanks to my, I think, healthy regime. But this is one of those situations, that definitely first and foremost showed me just that I have people around me that will support me no matter what, and that is priceless. And as much as I'm indebted with them in terms of just giving back to them what they've supported me with, I am just in awe of their support. But also it is definitely an opportunity for me to practice what Marcus Aurelius invites us to practice, right? To turn the other cheek, so to speak, to accept this and let go, to not hold grudge, and to try and move forward as a better, stronger, and wiser person, hopefully. So yeah, I think this, especially this timing of the recording and of this book revision, is a good moment for me to reflect on that once more. And I will probably record a separate video, separate monologue podcast about this particular situation for all of you out there to look out for in the future. Anyway, our third point that I would like to make before I share another quote with you, two actually, is something that we've already alluded to, which is the shortness of life and our mortality. This is something that definitely struck me as something unusual. I did not expect, as I read the the book the first time, I did not expect the book to be so, you could say, sad, you know. I mean, maybe it is not sad. Maybe we just think of death as something sad. Although, depending on your perspective on death, you might consider death to be just another step in our transformation. You know, I'm not here to advertise any views on death, so I'll leave you to that. What I will say, however, is that Marcus Aurelius takes a lot of time to analyze and reflect upon the idea that all before him are now dead, and he will die someday, and all after him will die someday. And because of this all, he recognizes how futile and unnecessary is to worry about legacy, about what other people think about him, about the ways he made a mistake on, or about the things that he fell short with. And I think this is really, really powerful. You know, we've already discussed it before, that some people claim that meditation, the practice of meditation, is the practice of preparation for death. And this is something that we've mentioned when we talked about the Tibetan Book of the Dead, if you remember. If not, I will put the link in the description below. That was a very beautiful episode and still is second most listened to episode on my podcast, which is, I think, self-explanatory, considering that it's a powerful book. As I said before, I believe some books are just powerful, and because of that, they attract more attention. But this invitation to consider your mortality as a way of keeping track and being sure that you will not fall prey to ego, and you will not fall prey to ambition, and you will remember what's important in life, and you will be humble in your stride. I think this is something that really, first of all, just a powerful thing to think about. And I know that in our day and age, we sometimes run away from the topic of death as something morbid or something that should not be talked about. You know, it's a sort of a taboo, I think, in the Western culture in particular. But maybe it does not have to be. Maybe they are right, and there is a huge power in considering death and remembering death as a way of keeping track of yourself, you know. Something that this reminded me of, and a quote that I have here is Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could live life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." And this reminds me of Stanford address by Steve Jobs a while back, when he told the story of reading in one of the magazines he was a big fan of, that this quote, "Live your day as if it was your last, because one day you'll certainly be right." I think for me, when I was younger, I think I was 15, 16, I had a bit of a crisis. I was very injured, and because of that, I couldn't continue one of my passions, and I had to sort of start from the beginning. I had a year of no training whatsoever, and obviously, you know, you can imagine being a 15, 16-year-old. It's not necessarily the easiest time to have a crisis. If anything, everyone has a crisis at that time, I'm pretty sure. And I've stumbled upon that quote, and it really imprinted in my mind. It's not in a way of expecting that I will die tomorrow, rather reevaluating every now and then whether or not what you do is something you would like to do. If you were to die tomorrow, you know, there are many stories about people that find out that they have some sort of terminal illness, and even though they might not die in the end for the next foreseeable future, even a couple years later, they suddenly live with so much more zest in life because they recognize the valuable time they have. and they stop wasting it doing things they don't want to do, or spending time with people they don't like, or focusing on things that are not necessarily the most important. And of course, this is not to say that what you're doing right now is wrong, but it's definitely a good invitation by timeless Caesar Marcus Aurelius to take a moment and reflect. What are you doing today, and how are you spending your time? Where do you contribute your time, energy, and life? In what aspects? And is that something you would be proud of if you were to die tomorrow? Would that be something that you feel okay with? And you know it is fair to say we cannot suddenly switch our life upside down completely. It's not easy to fill out your bucket list and tick it off every day for the next 2 months if you don't have enough money in your pocket to, for instance, go to a different country to do that one bucket list thing done. But maybe with small steps and small activities throughout your week, month, year, you can tick more of them as you go. And I was talking to one of my very close friends yesterday that I believe you will hear about him soon enough as well. He's a great inspiration for me, and we go way back, and he's now striving to become or maybe is becoming already a professional fighter. And he mentioned that it's been 2 years since he's been going weekly for singing lessons. 2 years, that's a long time. This podcast is about 2 years now old. I think maybe 2.5 already. And it's a long time. You can do a lot of things in 2 years. And he was so happy about it. He was so happy about the fact that he stuck to it. And I think this is the key point in this thing. He said that it's only once a week. It does not seem to be a lot, but over time it stacks up. So whatever it is you're postponing because of your work, uni, responsibilities, you could take a smaller measure of that and start doing it today. He mentioned also that his sister encouraged him to even read 2 pages of a book a day because he would struggle to find time to read at all. And I resonate with that greatly. I've already mentioned it in one of the episodes. Read. If you want to read, read. If it's 1 page a day, if it's 2 paragraphs a day, if it's 1 word a day, it does not matter. It still will be much more than anyone else who does not read. And it's the same with training, 10 push-ups a day is probably better than none. And at some point, those 10 push-ups will be easy enough that you will do 11 and then 12. And this is like, I think it's like that with anything you do, that slowly but surely we end up doing more and more of those things if we give ourselves the permission to start. So my invitation here, of course, for your next week, next month, next year is something that I would wish for you if I gave you happy birthday wishes today over the phone, as I usually do with my friends. Think about one thing you'd like to make happen, and figure out a way, a dosage for yourself that you could aim for it daily. And it does not have to be big. It can start as tiny as 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute a day. And of course, the more time you give it, the more results and the quicker results you will see. So finally, I will give you the final quote from Marcus that I've sort of omitted in all this discussion. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. And in this part, he points out the paradox of this, and he tries to mitigate it by saying and practicing the humility and recognition, as we talked about already, that his life is nothing but a speck of dust in the grandiose of the universe, and that one day, someday, he will be gone. And it is quite unlikely that we still hear about him now. And imagine how many more we will never hear about. So I think here it is a fair moment to finish up the episode. I don't want to give you too much of Marcus Aurelius's book, because finally, ultimately, I would like you to read it yourself. I really do hope that those episodes give you a chance to explore the book further down the line on your own. But for what is worth, I hope that this, you could say, a little morbid episode is hopefully giving you some ideas and thoughts worth pondering, as per usual. And I wish for you that you make your dreams a reality, 1 minute at a time, or 1 word at a time if you're a writer. Other than that, have a beautiful week. I will be here. I will probably record a few episodes in advance because I will be going for holidays in 2 weeks' time. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.